Alex was a notorious flirt, reckless and indulgent. No one would have imagined that the person he'd end up marrying would be someone like me. An average, unremarkable nobody, a complete simp. After we got married, he played the role of a good husband for exactly 1 year, just enough to keep up appearances, before his true nature surfaced. Scandals clung to him like a second skin, and he always carried a different woman's perfume. Everyone believed I had no choice but to forgive him and clean up his messes. This time, while I was once again handling one of Alex's scandals, I glanced at him a little longer than usual. A faint smile curled at his lips. Didn't you already know what kind of person I was before we got married? If you can't handle it, we can get a divorce, but can you really bring yourself to do it? I let out a quiet breath of relief, tightening my grip on the divorce papers I had already prepared. Alex firmly believed he was the ultimate goal I had ever managed to simp my way toward. But in truth, he wasn't. Chapter 1. Among the upper-class social circles, there's a saying about me, the so-called wealthy housewife, rather than Alex's wife. She's more like his crisis PR manager. Everyone knows that whenever Alex gets caught in a new scandal, the first person he turns to is me, his wife, because I always manage to resolve his affairs flawlessly. Every single time. The first thing I do every morning when I open my eyes is check whether Alex has made headlines again. That day, when news of Alex secretly meeting Monica flooded every major platform, I hadn't even had time to look at it. My phone rang urgently. As soon as I picked up, his mother's stern voice came through. Handle it immediately. If this affects the company's image, don't bother coming back to the family estate this mid-autumn festival. On the way to the hotel, I quickly pulled up a plan. Contact Mr. Wong from Starlight Media. Ask him to lend us directorly. Have Monica's agent rush to the hotel. Release a statement saying Monica is meeting directorly today to discuss a new project. And her outfit. I pointed at the screen. Chanel's new spring collection. Get it delivered to room 866 within 20 minutes. By the time I stepped out of the elevator, Alex was already surrounded by reporters in the lobby. There was a hint of impatience on his face, though he maintained his composure with a restrained smile. Have you taken enough pictures? Mr. Alex, is the woman who entered the hotel with you really Monica? As a top celebrity, why would she be willing to be your mistress? Alex looked at him with a half smile. Without evidence, you shouldn't make baseless claims. The reporter immediately shot back. Someone captured. I walked over swiftly and slipped my arm naturally through Alex's. Honey, why aren't we leaving yet? What's going on? Why are there so many reporters? I asked. As if only just noticing them, Alex turned slightly and looked down at me, a hint of amusement flickering at the corner of his lips. I brushed my hair back, confidently presenting myself to the crowd, my outfit and hairstyle almost identical to Monica's in the photos. Of course, my face couldn't compare to even 1,000th of hers, but the photos were taken last night, blurry shots in the dark. Faces didn't matter. With a composed smile, I said, the Jasmine Hotel just opened to ensure the best possible experience for our guests. My husband and I personally stayed here last night to check for improvements. Our facilities and services are quite good. If any of you need accommodation in the future, I'll have the manager offer you an internal discount. Meanwhile, the people I had arranged on the outskirts had already uploaded photos of Alex and me online. The public narrative shifted instantly, clarifying the scandal while conveniently promoting the hotel at the same time. The aggressive reporters, finding nothing more to dig into, asked a few perfunctory questions before dispersing. There were still quite a few onlookers in the lobby, and I maintained my polite smile. On the way to the parking elevator, Alex suddenly reached out and wrapped an arm around my waist. He turned his head slightly to look at me, clearly pleased. You did well this time. You've improved quite a bit. I straightened my back, maintaining a poised and elegant posture. Even after hearing that, I kept up my practice smile and said nothing. Chapter 2. Monica didn't leave. She sat in the car, the window lowered just enough to reveal her stunningly beautiful face. Alex's gaze shifted from her face to mine, the disappointment in his eyes completely undisguised. Even when a beauty was angry, it was still pleasing to look at. She snapped at Alex. Your people sure are slow. You made me hide for that long. She glanced at me, clearly displeased. With a face like hers, how does she have the nerve to copy my outfit? Who is she trying to disgust? Alex responded indifferently. That's enough. What right do you have to throw a tantrum at me? Know your place. Do you really think you're still the 20-year-old Monica? Monica's face turned pale. She bit her lip and shot me an unwilling glance. If I hadn't refused to bow my head back then, this wealthy housewife position would never have gone to you. Holding my handbag, I returned her words with a light, effortless smile. The 20-year-old Monica did have that kind of leverage. Back then, Alex had even made a symbolic attempt to defy his family for her. A great beauty like her was different from someone like me. Alex's mother had only spoken to her once, and she felt humiliated enough to storm off abroad. If not for her pride, the position of Mrs. Alex truly wouldn't have fallen to me. After getting into the car, I leaned forward to start the engine, glancing at Alex from the corner of my eye. It had been nearly 3 years since our marriage, yet every time I looked at his face, I couldn't help but think, damn, he's ridiculously handsome, and, in every sense of the word, irresistible. Alex glanced at me. You've been quiet the whole way. Are you mad? I didn't answer. The car started moving. He toyed with a lighter, smiling casually. Didn't you already know what kind of person I was before we got married? Getting mad now seems a bit late, don't you think? You're not like Monica. At least she's nice to look at when she's angry. With your face, you'd better not get angry too often, otherwise you'll just look worse. Alex had always had a sharp tongue. From the very first day we met, he had made it clear, with my looks, being in a relationship with me would be somewhat off-putting. To be fair, I wasn't exactly ugly, just plain and unremarkable. But compared to top-tier beauties like Alex and Monica, anyone would say I was a toad lusting after a swan, a fresh flower stuck in a pile of manure. I smiled slightly. So what? In this world, what toad doesn't dream of eating swan meat? And among them, only a rare few actually succeed. I should feel proud of that. After yet another cheating scandal, Alex didn't even bother to apologize. He simply lay down and fell asleep. I stood by the bed, watching him for a long while. One arm rested over his forehead, his black hair slightly messy, his skin pale. I reached out, my fingers tracing down from his forehead, across his sharp brows, his high nose bridge, and his thin, delicate lips. His looks were truly a gift from heaven, no exaggeration. The kind that could take your breath away at first glance. And not just that, he had been lucky all his life. The only son of the Sakura group. He had everything he ever wanted since childhood. Everyone catered to him. Sometimes, fate really isn't fair. I pushed aside his shirt, my fingers brushing across his chest, sliding down along his defined lines and sculpted abs. A man standing 189 centimeters tall, everything about him was top tier. With his eyes still closed, Alex caught my wandering hand. Stop it. I'm tired. I'll give it to you tonight. I pulled my hand back and picked up a tissue from the bedside, wiping my fingers slowly. Before leaving the room, I paused and turned back. On that bed, Alex and I had shared countless intense nights. My face wasn't attractive whenever desire took over. He never looked at it. Sometimes he'd rather turn off the lights, or take me from behind, repeating it again and again. Alex never ate the same dish twice when it came to fine cuisine, so he would never understand that eating the same dish over and over, year after year, eventually becomes tiresome. And I realized I was getting tired of Alex. Maybe it was time to quit. Chapter 3. The next day. As usual, I drove to Alex's mother's villa. When I arrived, she was directing the servants to trim the garden branches. When she saw me, she merely lifted her eyelids slightly in acknowledgement. I was used to it by now. I sat down on the sofa and quietly opened my laptop to handle work. She enjoyed making things difficult. Every time I came, even if there was nothing urgent, she would make me wait for hours before finally deigning to speak to me. At the beginning, I didn't dare move and would just sit stiffly on the sofa, waiting for her to finish. Later, I realized it was a waste of time, so I gathered the courage to bring my laptop along. She only glanced at it once and didn't stop me, so I gradually developed the habit of working while waiting. After I had dealt with several projects, she finally spoke leisurely. This time, you handled it well. She set down her teacup and looked me up and down, a trace of disdain flashing in her eyes. If you have nothing better to do, Think about fixing that face of yours. If you can't even keep your husband from being lured away by those vixens outside, what's the point of being successful in your career? I closed my laptop and replied calmly. Alex grew up looking at a great beauty like you. No matter what I do, he'll still think I'm ugly. I had plenty of money now, but I had never considered cosmetic procedures. I didn't want Alex to marry an ordinary-looking woman, only to end up enjoying the benefits of a wife who suddenly transformed into a stunning beauty. The sharpness in his mother's expression visibly softened a little. Enough. If there's nothing else, go back on Mid-Autumn Festival night. Have Alex bring you to the family estate. She didn't like Monica, and naturally, she didn't like me either. Both of us came from ordinary backgrounds. Monica at least had her looks. Back then, maybe it was because I had been a simp for Alex for so many years that I moved him, or maybe he just wanted to go against his mother. Whatever the reason, I still got what I wanted. I married him. At first, I genuinely wanted to please his mother, no matter how she made things difficult for me. I endured it all, but sometimes, her criticisms were simply absurd. When you stand, how can your knees be positioned like that? There are split ends in your hair. Why haven't you dealt with them? No one in our family wears this brand of high heels. And when you smile, why are you showing so many teeth? At the time, Alex wasn't too bad to me yet. Occasionally, when I felt truly wronged, I would quietly complain to him, but he would only look at me, lean in, pinch my chin, and say with a smile, "Look at you, average looks, average background. Aside from your education, there's really nothing about you that matches me. You married up. If you don't suffer a bit, what would all those rich, beautiful girls who couldn't marry me think?" He was so handsome that even when he said such harsh things, his eyes still seemed affectionate. I had always been too tolerant of Alex, but I didn't think that was entirely my fault. If you had ever seen someone this good-looking in real life, you would understand the overwhelming impact of that kind of beauty. Sometimes, just looking at someone like that makes your mind go blank. You start to feel that everything they do is right, even when it's wrong. There must be some understandable reason behind it. When someone is beautiful enough, even a bad temper can feel like personality. I withdrew my gaze and looked at Alex's mother. My voice calm. I came today to discuss divorcing Alex. For the first time, I saw such a storm of emotion on her well-maintained face. What did you say? It took her a while to regain her composure. Are you out of your mind? How dare you bring up divorce so casually? Don't tell me you think mentioning divorce will make him come back to his senses? I took out a USB drive, plugged it into my laptop, and turned the screen toward her. As I moved the mouse, her eyes widened bit by bit. Over the past 2 years, I had collected every single piece of evidence of Alex's affairs, and now, I showed it all to her without omission. How did you? Her disbelief was beyond words. I understood. Everyone thought that every time I handled Alex's scandals, I must have destroyed all the evidence immediately, because I loved Alex too much and couldn't bear to lose him. Only by covering up his scandals could I continue deceiving myself, living as his wealthy wife. In this world, no one wanted more than I did, for all evidence of Alex's affairs to disappear into nothing. Chapter 4. She couldn't say a word, so I spoke for her. I won't leave with nothing, but I'm not going to ask for an outrageous amount either. I only want 50 million. That's just your yearly allowance, a trivial sum. If Alex and I can't divorce peacefully, I'll file a lawsuit. But once it goes to court, these scandals won't stay buried. So the best option is to settle this with money. After all, you've never liked me. Once I'm gone, you can choose a daughter-in-law you're actually satisfied with. When we got married, Alex never believed I would ever bring myself to divorce him, so he didn't even bother drafting a prenuptial agreement. In theory, I could take half of his assets, but for me, that would be a long battle with very low odds of winning. I thought his mother would be angry, furious, even, but after a long pause, she suddenly asked, "All these years chasing after Alex, did you truly love him? Or were you just after money?" My hand paused for a moment, then returned to normal. Love, of course I had loved him. As Alex once said, aside from being academically excellent, I had no other strengths. Someone like me would never have crossed paths with him in a lifetime. but my grades were simply too good. As an outstanding student, I was exceptionally admitted into Alex's high school. My family wasn't poor, but it was ordinary, so ordinary that at some point, I felt like I could already see the end of my life, especially with my looks, if I were capable. People would only call me a cold, unapproachable iron lady. In the end, I would probably pick someone passable under social pressure and muddle through life, surrounded by mundane routines and compromises. The first time I saw Alex, I couldn't look away for a long while. Back then, the boys in class started jeering loudly. Oh wow, even the blackboard eraser is checking out a guy. Blackboard eraser was my nickname. They thought a tool that could solve any problem suited someone like me, good at studying, but unattractive. Amid the teasing, Alex glanced at me indifferently. I never stopped the rumors, because I knew I would never have a chance to get close to him. So I let my feelings travel through gossip, letting my presence occasionally reach his ears. I never once confessed my feelings, but whenever Alex needed someone, I would appear at just the right moment. For example, when he wanted to break up after 3 months of dating, and the girl threatened suicide, he was ruthless. But he didn't want a life on his hands, so I would go to the hospital for him. Or when he got annoyed by girls he didn't like who kept pestering him, he would pull me over and say, "This is my sister. She hates girls like you who rely on their looks." I can't help it, I dote on my sister. So I'd never date someone pretty. The girl would roll her eyes and leave. Leaning against the wall, Alex would ask casually, "I heard you like me too?" I never took the initiative to confess, so I shook my head. "No, I just think you're very good looking. My academic pressure is high, looking at you helps me relax." That was the truth. If he hadn't looked down on me so much, I would have wanted to try other ways to relax as well. Only then did he seem satisfied. That's more like it. If you liked me, I'd feel pressured too. Because of my looks, any beauty being pursued by someone unattractive would probably find it nightmarish. During those years, I watched Alex drift through life, carefree and reckless. I never once thought about changing my appearance to become his type, because Alex had too many types. Bright, alluring, pure, elegant, he liked them all. The year of the college entrance exam, I became the top science student in the province and entered the best university in the country. Alex's grades weren't as good as mine, but he had money, and his money got him into one of the best universities in the world. During college, I studied and worked part-time. All the money I earned went toward plane tickets. I flew abroad at least 3 times a year to see Alex. He never rejected me. The first time he saw me in New York, he smiled and said, "You've gotten a bit prettier." I knew it was just a polite remark. I had only put a bit more effort into my appearance compared to high school, at best. I was no longer unattractive, but I still couldn't be called beautiful. Chapter 5. When Alex was abroad, he rarely stayed in one place. He might be in Paris this month, then Switzerland the next. During the days I waited to see him, I taught myself multiple languages just to pass the time. I still remember that moment in Berlin, when I spoke fluent, native-level German right in front of him. The look of surprise, almost admiration, in his eyes at that instant. If I say I love money, people would call me ugly and materialistic, constantly guarding themselves against me. But if I say I love a man, they would only see me as a pitiful simp and drop their guard when it comes to money. I'm good at acting. I usually play the role of someone deeply in love with Alex, devoted to him alone, so no one knows that I love money too, just as much as I once loved Alex. If I had endured all those years just for that one beautiful face, it would have been far too much of a loss. But if I said that I not only slept with a top-tier handsome man, but also became a wealthy wife and achieved a leap in social class, people would only think I was impressive as hell. After leaving Alex's mother's villa, I felt completely refreshed. After all, once she was dealt with, the divorce was already half settled. As for Alex, divorce would probably be a good thing for him. At the very least, getting rid of me would let him relax for a while. Just as I pulled up to the company building, my phone rang. Alex's name flashed on the screen. I picked up, but before I could speak, I heard a noisy background. I recognized it. It was the group of childhood friends Alex had grown up with. In 3 years of marriage, Alex had never introduced me to them. Maybe my looks were too embarrassing for him. He always avoided taking me out to be laughed at. But I had never asked. Those rich young men were not people I needed to meet. I had no resources to gain from them, and even if I did, I would get them through my own means, not through Alex's charity. They hadn't realized the call had already connected, and were still chatting away. Alex really is something, his whole life. He's relied on that face, young or old. Everyone falls for him. So many people would die for that face of his. Exactly. His wife guards him from other women like crazy, like she wants to keep him tied to her side. Well, think about how many years she spent being a simp to finally beat out all those seductive rivals and secure her position. Of course she has to keep a tight grip on him. Melisande really is hopelessly devoted, no matter how Alex messes around outside. He just has to crook a finger and she compromises. I heard Alex let out a laugh. He must have seen that the call had connected, but he didn't bother to hide it, just clicked his tongue lightly. The next second, his voice came through, lazy and almost patronizing. Come over to Emerald tonight. I'll introduce you to Atlas and the others. After a pause, he tapped his fingers casually. Remember to put on some makeup. Wear something brighter. Buy makeup. He obviously didn't mean my own amateur efforts. Over the years, whenever I attended important events, I had a professional makeup artist, but his friends weren't important enough for me to dress up like I was attending a formal occasion. I didn't respond. I simply hung up. Once inside the company, I threw myself straight into work without a second's pause. Alex was quickly pushed to the back of my mind. I was academically gifted and highly capable. Aside from my face, there wasn't a place in me that didn't shine. After marriage, I fought to enter Sakura Group. Alex's family had only agreed casually, expecting me to struggle, but in just 3 years, I had made my way into the core of the company, delivering numerous outstanding projects. At the club, Alex waited until late into the night. The time nearing midnight, everyone stayed silent. Accompanying him, the lively atmosphere from earlier drinks had gradually cooled into something tense. Alex let out a scoff and tossed his phone aside, glancing around at the group. Is it really that surprising? Women are all like this when they're angry, he said, as if seeking agreement. It's not only beauties who have the right to throw a tantrum. When her husband's scandals get out of hand, it's understandable for her to lose her temper once in a while. Come on, I think she's just pushing her luck. Atlas nudged the speaker and shot him a look. Didn't you see how dark his expression is? Why stir things up? All right, Alex. How about we call it a night? Next time we'll definitely get a chance to meet Melisande. The crowd gradually dispersed. Alex sat alone in the private room, a cold laugh forming in his mind. Melisande, she's really grown bold. The phone on the sofa rang. He pressed speaker. His mother's voice echoed through the room, filled with frustration. Your wife is about to divorce you, and you're still fooling around outside. Alex didn't even lift his eyes, completely unconcerned, replying with a teasing tone. Careful joking like that. Mom, you might pull something. Chapter 6. When Alex came back, I was still in the shower. The divorce agreement was placed on the table, impossible to miss at a glance. By the time I came out, he was already sitting there, having read through it several times. There was no shock, no anger on his face, only a detached indifference, as if it didn't matter at all. After finishing, he casually tossed the document back onto the table and looked me up and down. This time, he didn't make his usual remark about how I looked even more plain after a shower. 50 million is enough to get rid of you? He lifted his eyelids slightly, his tone full of mockery. Your appetite is really small. If you love money, wouldn't staying as a wealthy wife earn you far more than just 50 million? 50 million was actually a lot, an enormous amount. If I followed the path of an ordinary person, working and saving, it would take me at least 10 years to earn that much. But through this marriage, I had gained it in just 3 years. And besides the money, this marriage had also given me connections and resources. The title of a wealthy wife, once you've had it, even after divorce, still carries weight wherever you go. That's why the gap between people can feel like an unbridgeable chasm. To Alex, 50 million was insignificant. To me, it was enough to settle this marriage. I looked up at him. It's not a small amount. If you're willing to add more, I'd gladly accept. He smiled and nodded. Melisande, people should know their limits. If you don't have the ability, don't try to imitate those women out there. You think you can make me settle down? So many women prettier and better than you couldn't do it. What makes you think you can? I looked at him, puzzled. You should be happy that such a small amount of money can get rid of me. Why are you getting upset instead? Or, I tested him deliberately, trying to provoke him. Have you developed feelings for me and started to feel reluctant to let go? At that, Alex's lips curled into a mocking smile. In this marriage, the only one who's ever been reluctant is you. He tilted his chin slightly, arrogance written all over him. But Melisande, I think I should remind you, once the position of a wealthy wife is vacant, it won't be so easy to take it back. That was the truth. From the very first day I knew Alex, he had never had a gap between relationships. The moment one ended, another woman would already be clinging to him. He never refused anyone, even when he wasn't dating. He always needed someone by his side, someone to accompany him, to dine with him. Alex returned to his indifferent demeanor. Melisande, divorce won't control me. If you insist on trying, I'll give you time to come to your senses. With that, he casually grabbed the agreement and signed his name in bold, sweeping strokes. As he let go, the document fluttered down like a falling leaf. Just like our marriage, a rootless tree, its withered leaves finally drifting to the ground. He opened the door and walked out, phone pressed to his ear, speaking to someone I couldn't hear. I crouched down and picked up the divorce papers, one page at a time. Chapter 7. The divorce process took some time, but once it was finalized, the $50 million was transferred into my bank account, every cent accounted for. Before leaving the villa we had lived in during our marriage, I sold off all the luxury items I owned and converted them into cash. When I walked out of that house, I didn't take a single piece of luggage with me, just as empty-handed as when I had first arrived. I turned back for one last look. There was no attachment, just a hint of regret. After all, Alex and I had shared one good year. Back then, he would get off work on time, come home, watch movies with me, and even help me with project plans. I never demanded loyalty from him. I had even thoughtfully removed that word from our wedding vows. So during that first year of marriage, his uncharacteristic behavior made me feel like I had been struck by extraordinary luck. I thought I was chosen by fate. So what if I was plain looking? I had made a playboy settle down for me. Unfortunately, his loyalty had an extremely short shelf life, and a playboy never truly turns back. Perhaps those 2 years had drained too much of my emotions. I detached from this marriage with surprising ease. At 27, I used my capital, connections, and resources to build my own company, tasting for the first time what it meant to hold real power. My company's first major client was the renowned Starlight Group. Christian, the one in control of Starlight, the eldest grandson of the Law family's third generation. When we shook hands, he only touched mine lightly, restrained and distant, his gaze brushing over me like a dragonfly skimming water. But I looked at him a few times longer. Before coming, I had already studied his background thoroughly. The only thing that surprised me was that he was young and handsome. Not to the dangerously mesmerizing level of Alex, but refined, upright, and striking in his own way. I had never thought that I should avoid men for the rest of my life. But after experiencing someone like Alex, my standards had long since become demanding. The moment I saw Christian Law, I knew he was worthy of me. Besides, compared to a top-tier powerhouse like the Law family, even Sakura Group seemed slightly inferior. And my life, Melisande's life, only moves forward, never backward. Casually, I jotted down notes on paper. Christian, male, 32, dislikes strong fragrances, only drinks black coffee, likes history, enjoys sailing without engine assistance, sailing without engine power, a dangerous, free, and intensely controlled sport. Unfortunately, I didn't know how to do it. 2 weeks later, I stood at a private dock, skillfully checking the ropes and adjusting the sails, my movements smooth and precise. Nothing like a beginner. The sea breeze lifted the hem of my clothes as I caught the wind and sailed out steadily. My course clean and flawless. I lifted my eyes and met Christian's gaze directly. He stood on the viewing platform, his expression calm. I curved my lips slightly, giving him a polite nod, Just enough. No more. A man in Christian's position never lacks people throwing themselves at him. Besides, when it comes to dealing with men, attraction is what matters. It's best if he follows the scent and comes to you on his own. Chapter 8. At the second collaboration meeting, when the tea was served, I said softly, "I prefer black coffee. Could you please switch it for me?" After speaking, I met Christian's eyes briefly, my gaze falling naturally on his cup. "What a coincidence, Mr. Law. You like black coffee too?" I smiled casually. Christian tapped lightly on the table and instructed, "My office just received some new beans. Prepare a hand-brewed cup for her to try." I thanked him generously, then lowered my head to review the proposal. The gaze resting on me lingered for quite a while before finally shifting away. Christian never attended meetings like this twice in a row personally. My presentation was nearly flawless, and his attention lingered on me a little longer than before. After the meeting, we walked out together, trailing behind the others. I extended my right hand, and he shook it lightly again. "This weekend, there's a sailing race at Dolphin Marina that I'm hosting. Would the boss be interested in gracing us with your presence?" Of course, it would be my honor. At Dolphin Marina that weekend, all kinds of sailboats were docked along the shore. Christian wore light gray quick-dry clothing today, less of the cold sharpness from the business world, and more of a clean, effortless edge. As I stepped onto the boat, it rocked slightly. I had just reached out when his hand steadied my forearm first. After setting sail, Christian took the helm. While I adjusted the sails and balanced the boat beside him, our movements fell into an easy rhythm. Out in the open sea, the horizon stretched endlessly, the world quiet except for the sound of waves and wind. He suddenly slowed the boat and looked at me. "You know more than I expected." I lowered my eyes with a soft laugh. "Really? Before coming, I was just hoping I wouldn't slow you down." Christian let out a quiet chuckle, his usually cold expression softening like ice melting. After that, Christian and I occasionally had meals together, discussing projects along the way, until one day, I opened WeChat and sent him a voice message. "Mr. Law, what do you think if the German army had launched a full attack at Dunkirk? Would the course of World War II have been completely changed?" Within minutes, Christian Law sent over a dozen voice messages, each a full 60 seconds long. After a while, he simply called me. "It's hard to explain over messages. I'll come pick you up. How about we talk over dinner?" As a science student, it had taken me half a week to fully understand that complicated mess of World War II history. This was the first time I had seen Christian talk so much, animated, expressive, completely absorbed. I listened attentively, occasionally raising questions when something didn't make sense. The meal stretched on for 2 hours. Christian drove me downstairs and leaned over to unfasten my seatbelt. "See you tomorrow," he said, ever the gentleman. Strange. See me tomorrow, for what? There was no meeting, no arrangement. I smiled and nodded. At that moment, my pearl earring slipped off, seemingly by accident. Old tricks don't matter, as long as they work. Chapter 9. That weekend, I was invited to attend the inauguration ceremony of the Law family's suburban estate. Most of Alex's brilliance came from the shelter of his family background, but Christian, as the founder of the Starlight Group, carried confidence and sharpness born largely from the empire he had built with his own hands. Being around Christian made me feel relaxed, genuinely at ease. At the ceremony, I was seated in the VIP section. Christian didn't avoid the attention of others. He walked over to me, bent slightly, and spoke a few quiet words. After he left, people who recognized me began whispering behind my back. I smiled indifferently, straightened my posture, and sat upright. When people talk about me behind my back, it only means I'm already ahead of them. But for a brief moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned instinctively and met Alex's dark gaze. At some point, he had also arrived, sitting with one leg crossed over the other. He stared at me expressionlessly. "No wonder you were so eager to divorce." In the ginkgo-lined corridor, Alex stood with his hands in his pockets, blocking my path. "So you've already lined up your next man? That was fast." I raised an eyebrow. "Fast? I think it's slow, thanks to you. With all the training I've had over the years, I can win over a man in 3 days." "Why so slow this time?" Because I'm enjoying the process. What that process meant didn't need to be explained. After all, Alex and I had never really had a proper relationship to begin with. What he couldn't accept was that I was actually dating Christian. I hadn't expected much from Christian at first, but the fact that he was still a virgin surprised me and intrigued me. Anyone who stays single into their 30s, man or woman, is stubborn to the core, so I didn't mind spending a bit more time and effort on him. Alex pressed his lips together, his jawline tightening. Who cares? I gave a polite nod and turned to leave, more composed than he was. Hey, Atlas stared at my retreating figure. That's Melisande, right? She's not as bad looking as you said. Her figure's pretty good too, looks around 170 cm. Alex let out a scoff. If there's something wrong with your eyes, go see a doctor. Atlas changed the subject. By the way, that's Christian. Didn't people say he doesn't like women? Melisande's pretty impressive to pull that off. Alex sneered. Can't you tell he's just playing with her? All these years. Besides me, what decent man would actually be interested in someone who looks like her? Atlas let out a small "oh," because just now, when Melisande stood there, more than a few men had been secretly stealing glances at her, but he chose to keep quiet. How could someone be this confident? To such an extent? Chapter 10. I hadn't expected Alex to be this childish, to openly try to drive a wedge between us right in front of me. You think she really likes you? You're just a stepping stone, he said, adopting the tone of someone experienced, as if lecturing from a position of authority. When she was chasing me, she was even more devoted than she is now. Once she got what she wanted, didn't she just kick me to the curb? His tone sounded like accusation, like complaint, tinged with a trace of unwillingness. I took a breath, about to speak, but Christian's arm hovered lightly around my waist, and he reached out to pat Alex on the shoulder. A good husband, he said calmly, should be the ladder that helps his wife reach greater heights. As a man, you should feel proud of that, not resentful. I glanced at Christian. His gaze was steady, quietly reassuring me. I had never thought those calculated little tactics of mine could truly fool him. In fact, sometimes they were full of flaws. If he hadn't chosen to go along with them, I would never have made it this far. I wasn't afraid of him seeing through me. All I wanted was for him to know that I was willing to put in effort for him. Alex's eyes lingered briefly on our joined hands. As he walked past me, he left behind one last sentence. Melisande, there's nothing good about men. Do you really think you'll get the happiness you want? To be honest, I didn't know, but at 28, I married Christian. When I was 16, I once returned to my hometown. A neighbor happened to glance at my palm. The lines were chaotic, crisscrossing, tangled in a mess. She made her judgment. With palm lines like this, messy and disordered, you're not destined for wealth or fortune. But back then, I had read a sentence. Don't believe in the lines on your palm, believe in the strength of a clenched fist. Before marriage, Christian and I signed an agreement. I wanted my career to remain independent. He already had a vast business empire. So naturally, he had no interest in my company. He didn't object, he followed my wishes, even taking the initiative to add clauses in the agreement that favored me. Christian and I became known in our circles as a loving couple. He had grown up immersed in his family business and possessed an exceptionally sharp business instinct. Whenever I hit a bottleneck, he could always pinpoint the core issue with effortless precision. Your competitor is suppressing you with low prices, but they've overlooked weaknesses in their own supply chain. What you need to do now is coordinate with your suppliers to create differentiated competition. If you move one step ahead, you win. He rarely stepped in directly to solve my problems. More often, he chose to teach me how to solve them myself. No one had ever trained my business thinking so systematically. Even during my years in Alex's family, I had always been on my own, feeling my way across the river by stepping on stones. Christian, on the other hand, was generous. He broke down years of his business experience and taught it to me, piece by piece. Chapter 11. A woman establishes herself at 30. My life reached a peak in my early 30s, my love life was fulfilling, and my career was thriving. Over the past few years, I leveraged every connection and capability I had, pushing the company I founded from scratch to ring the bell at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. reaching a market value of several billion. After achieving a stage of stability and success, I began to think about having a child. I thought a daughter would be wonderful. Christian has thick brows, big eyes, and fair skin. If we had a daughter who looked like him, that would be quite nice. That night, I planned to share this idea with Christian, but on his collar, I noticed a faint, barely visible lipstick mark. He seemed completely unaware of it, even a little upset. Carefully explaining himself to me, the first time, I forgave him, but I never brought up having a child again. Later, as I sat quietly in my car, I saw that young, charming female assistant. At the same time, I received a message from Alex. I told you long ago, he's no good either. At least when I'm bad, I'm upfront about it. In fact, the day before I married Christian, Alex had called me while drunk. Melisande, I promise I'll never make that kind of mistake again. Can you not marry him? Facts prove that a man's promises are useless. Over the years, Alex never remarried. After what happened with me, he knew he couldn't handle the constraints of marriage. He didn't get married, but I knew he never lacked company all these years. It was as if he was excited to finally catch Christian in the act. Seizing the opportunity to step in, he cheated. Fair and square, you should cheat too. I've even picked the candidate for you. Think about it. Along with that message came a photo of himself. I'm not out of my mind, even if I were to have an affair. I wouldn't choose someone like Alex. At the age of 32, I brought up divorce with Christian, ending our 5-year marriage. When it came time to sign the divorce papers, Christian hesitated for a long time. He didn't agree. He sat on the sofa, staring out the window, and only after a long while did he turn back. Back then, when Alex cheated, you cleaned up after him for 2 whole years. The same mistake, yet with me, you won't even give a third chance. Melisande, in the end, you still love him more than me. I had actually been thinking all along, why is it that a man's morality and bottom line can be so easily crossed? After much thought, digging to the root of it, there is only one reason: he is a man. I looked at Christian and didn't argue. I only said, sign it. Before I left, he made me a promise. I'm sorry, I didn't keep my promise to you. In the future, if you need anything, you can come to me. According to the agreement we had drawn up back then, after divorcing Christian, I received shares, as well as a large amount of real estate and cash. I was never truly in love with Alex. When I left him, I felt relief. But when I left Christian, I felt a trace of regret. But it doesn't matter, life moves forward. Fate renews itself. Even the deepest things will eventually become shallow. Chapter 12. At 35, I met another man worthy of me, and thus entered my 3rd marriage. When Alex found out, years of pent-up obsession finally erupted. Melisande, are you fucking addicted to getting married? It wasn't that he still loved me deeply. He just couldn't let it go all these years. He always thought I would regret it, that I would break down in tears. After marriage, I still held full control of the company, making all major strategic decisions. But due to Dylan's special status, I reduced my appearances in public media, and few people knew about our relationship. That year, my corporate empire expanded once again, with business spanning across the globe. At the dinner table, I casually said I didn't like drinking, and the next second, all the wine glasses were cleared away. A few young girls seated at the end table looked at me, their eyes shining as they smiled. Suddenly, I recalled the time right after I graduated from college, when I worked for a while and attended many business dinners. Back then, even though I wasn't particularly attractive, I still couldn't avoid being pressured to drink at the table. The so-called drinking culture is nothing more than a test of obedience, a trick glorified by the incompetent. Women who truly earn their place at the table never need to play these power games to prove themselves. At 38, I ended my 3rd marriage. Dylan believed that his wife shouldn't show herself too much in public. That old man was truly ridiculous. Why didn't he think of that when we got married? Back then, he spoke with absolute certainty, saying that as Dylan's wife, I should be exactly like this, expanding my ambitions and pursuing what I wanted. Men are just like that. Once they get older, their minds tend to narrow. Once a man becomes a stumbling block, you have to kick him away, otherwise, you're finished. Fortunately, Over the years, Dylan did treat me sincerely, and I had already gotten what I wanted. At 40, my boyfriend was 18 years younger than me. He was beautiful and vibrant, circling around me, calling me beautiful sister, saying how pretty I was. Pretty? No, I have never been pretty. My nose isn't high, my eyes aren't large, and my face is square and rounded. I truly don't count as beautiful. Alex still wouldn't give up. At 40, he was still recommending himself. I looked at him with a critical gaze. Talking about business? You no longer have the qualifications to sit at the same negotiating table as me. I said it long ago. If it weren't for his privileged background, Alex wouldn't have had the ability to overshadow me in Sakura Group. And now, if Sakura Group wants to collaborate with me, they'd probably have to go through several layers of connections first. Talking about love? I paused, each word piercing. When beauty fades, love fades with it. Alex, you're old. The only advantage Alex once had with me had completely vanished. What could he possibly use to compete with a young, handsome boy? Even now, Alex will never understand. My girlish feelings were never about loving him. They were about ambition, about refusing to stand behind anyone. They were sharpness, arrogance, boundless wilderness, a stream flowing into the sea. My youth began with the goal of looking down upon the entire world. And now, the world lies beneath my feet.